Hello everybody, welcome. This is our class, our ASHLAG Kabbalah class. We are learning the first Hakdama, the introductory article of Rabbi Yehuda ASHLAG, who's known by his nom de gras, the Baal HaSulam, the master of the ladder, and he was the greatest modern day Kabbalist, and he decoded the Zohar, and he did a commentary on the works of the Ari, and really made everything, demystified everything, and decoded all of the secrets of Kabbalah for the modern practitioner and the modern student. So we're learning the first article, which is called Matan Torah, which means the giving of the Torah, and all of the introductory articles of the Baal HaSulam are to try to give a person the context, the proper context for learning Kabbalah and understanding really the truth of what Kabbalah is, because there's so much misinformation and so much confusion in the world about people, what people think Kabbalah is. They think it's magic or something that's going to get them make them a lot of money or make them famous and all these strange things. And so the Baal HaSulam has all of these introductory articles. And so we've been going through this article. I'm just going to start from the very beginning and read the article without giving any explanation, and then we can start to discuss, okay? Love your friend as yourself. Rabbi Yehuda says, this is the great rule in the Torah. This statement of our sages demands explanation. The word klal, collective, indicates a sum of details that when put together form the above collective. Thus, when we say about the mitzvah, love thy friend as thyself, that is a great klal in the Torah, a great rule in the Torah, the collective rule of the Torah. We must understand that the rest of the 612 mitzvot, precepts, in the Torah, with all their interpretations, are no more and no less than the sum of the details inserted and contained in that singular mitzvah, love thy friend as thyself. Sorry, there's a fly. Okay. So what the Baal HaSulam just started off by saying is amazing. He's saying there's really only one mitzvah in the Torah. The entire mitzvah, the entire Torah is really about one rule, and that rule is that you should love your friend like yourself. Okay? This is quite perplexing, because you can say this regarding mitzvah, to love your friend as yourself, between man and man, but how can that single mitzvah contain all the mitzvos between man and God, which are the essence and the vast majority of the laws? Okay, so he's saying, how could you possibly say that there's all these mitzvot, all these rules in the Torah about how you have to treat God? So if you're going to say that all the rules that are for between man and man are really all variations of one singular rule, which is that you have to treat other people as good as you treat yourself, then what about all the mitzvot of loving God and how you treat God, okay? And if we can still strain to find some way to reconcile these words, there comes before us a second saying, even more conspicuous, about the convert who comes before Hillel and told him, great Rav Hillel in the Gemara, teach me the whole of the Torah while I stand on one leg. And he replied, and Hillel replied, the great sage replied, anything that you hate, do not do to your friend. And the rest is commentary, go and study. Okay? Here before us is a clear law that in all 612 mitzvos, the commandments, and in all the writings of the Torah, there is none that is preferred to the mitzvah, love thy friend as thyself. This is because they only aim to interpret and allow us to keep the mitzvah of loving others properly, since he specifically says the rest is commentary, now go and study. This means that the rest of the Torah, in its interpretations of that one mitzvah, that the mitzvah of love your friend as yourself, could not be completed were it not for them. Okay? Before we delve into the heart of the matter, we must observe the mitzvah. We must observe that mitzvah, since we were commanded, love thy friend as thyself. The word thyself tells us, love your friend to the same extent that you love yourself, not one bit less. In other words, you must constantly and vigilantly satisfy the needs of every person in the Israeli nation, no less than you are always vigilant to satisfy your own needs, okay? Just going to say out loud, that sounds crazy. None of us live like that, and nobody knows. The fact that it's telling you that the Torah is telling you that if this rabbi is telling you that that's what the Torah is for, you should tell the rabbi, well, I don't want to do it because it's impossible. It makes no sense. Did I wake up today and do anything for you? But a whole day I didn't do anything for you, right? So what's he saying? That I'm going to live my whole life by just taking care of everybody else? And that's what he's saying. So let's just keep reading and try to understand how that could possibly be true. Okay? This is utterly impossible, for not many can satisfy their own needs during their daily work. So how can one tell them to work to satisfy the wishes of an entire nation? And we couldn't possibly think that the Torah exaggerates, for it warns us not to add or subtract, indicating that these words and laws were given with utter precision. Okay? Amazing. And if there is still not enough for you, I will tell you that the simple explanation of that mitzvah of loving your fellow person is even harsher. It's even more strict. For we must put the needs of our friend before our own. It is as our sages wrote in Kedushin, page 20, also in the Talmud, regarding the verse, because he is happy with thee, regarding this Hebrew slave, when sometimes he has but one pillow, if he lays on it himself and does not give it to his slave, he does not observe because he is happy with thee. For he is lying on a pillow and the slave on the ground. And if he does not lie on it and does not give it to the slave, as well, it is a sodomite rule. It turns out that against his will, he must give it to his slave while the master himself lies on the ground. Okay? So he's just saying, if you think it's bad that you have to be as nice to other people as you are to yourself, he's telling you it's even worse. The Torah tells you that you have to be even nicer. If you have one sandwich, you have to give it. Well, sandwich is a bad example because you can split it. But if you have one pillow, you have to give it to your friend, and you have to sleep without a pillow. That's what he's saying. And so I can just say it again. We don't live like that. So what's this rabbi talking about? Why is he telling us that this is the Torah? Okay? And if he does not sit on it and also does not give it to his friend, it is as evil as a sodomite rule. Therefore, he must let his friend sit on it while he himself sits on the ground and stands. Clearly, this is the law regarding all the needs that one has and one's friend lacks. And now go and see if the mitzvah is in any way feasible. So he himself, Rabbi Yehuda ASHLAG, the great Kabbalist, says, why is the Torah telling you this? It's impossible. There's no way that you're going to be as nice to other people as you are to yourself. So what is the Torah talking about? We must first understand why the Torah was given specifically to the Israeli nation and not to all the peoples of the world equally. Is there, God forbid, nationalism involved here? Of course, only an insane person would think that. So he's saying, do you think we're talking about that the Jewish people are better than everybody else and that the Jewish nation is somehow special? He's saying, no, that's not what we're talking about. That's what they tell you all the time. That's not what we're talking about here, okay? We're talking about something internal. Of course, only an insane person would think that. In fact, our sages have examined this question, and this is what they meant by their words. God gave it to every nation and tongue, and they did not accept it. Okay? But what they find bewildering is why then were we called the chosen people, as it is written, the Lord thy God has chosen thee, since there was no other nation that wanted it. Moreover, there is a fundamental question in the matter. Can't it be that the Creator came with his law in his hands to negotiate with those savage people? Such a thing has never been heard of and is completely unacceptable. Okay? So the rabbi is asking a question. He's saying, if you want to understand the first question that we asked, is that how could the Torah tell you that you're going to be nicer to everybody else than yourself? He says, first we have to ask another question. The other question we're going to have to ask is, why does it say that the Torah was given to the Jewish people and not to the other people? Okay? So he said just now, usually he doesn't answer the question until after, but this question is so dangerous, is my opinion, that he's told you the answer right away. He answered his own question. He said, of course, only an insane person would think that. Is there, God forbid, nationalism involved here? Of course, only an insane person would think that. So he's saying, if you think that what the Torah is saying when it says that God gave the Torah only to the Jewish people, if you think that's what it means, you're crazy. So it's like the Rabbi ASHLAG is breaking the Torah. He's telling you all these things that you never heard before, and it's everything you were told. He's telling you it's not true anymore. Okay, so he's telling you, We have to learn. We have to understand what's really going on here, okay? These are secrets. Okay? But when we fully understand the essence of the Torah and mitzvos that were given to us and their desired purpose, to the extent our sages have instructed us, which is for the purpose of the great creation that is set before our eyes, then we shall understand everything. For the first concept is that there is no act without a purpose, and there is no exception from this rule except for the lowest of the human species or infants. Therefore, it is certain that the Creator, whose exaltedness is beyond conception, would not act, be it a great or small act, without a purpose. So he's saying, relax. I'm going to explain to you the truth of what's going on here, and you should know that everything is done exactly perfectly, why everything was done. So why is it that we are the Jewish people and the Torah was given to us, and now we're trying to live in Israel, and all these things that we get these very simple baby answers to. He's going to explain to you that everything is very, very exact, and it's for a purpose, okay? And he's going to explain to you what the purpose is, and he's going to explain to you exactly how everything works, okay? Our sages tell us about that the world has not been created but for the purpose of keeping Torah and mitzvos, meaning, as our sages have explained, that the aim of the Creator from the time he created his creation is to reveal his godliness to others. This is because the revelation of his godliness reaches the creatures as pleasant bounty that is ever growing until it reaches the desired measure. So he said, okay, you want to understand what's going on here? First you have to understand why we have a world to begin with. Why is there a world? Why did God create the world? Do you think the world looks nice? There's wars and there's sickness, disease, and everybody's unhappy all the time. So why would God create the world? And so here he's telling you is that you want to understand what's going on here and why the Torah is telling you this. First you need to understand something. God created the world in order to give everybody pleasant bounty that is ever growing. Pleasant bounty that is ever growing. The reason why all these things are being said and all the rules of the Torah said God created the world only for Torah and mitzvos. What is Torah and mitzvos? Torah and mitzvos is a method for achieving something. What is it a method for achieving? For achieving God's purpose. What is God's purpose? To give pleasant bounty that is ever growing. So everything that's happening now and everything that we're learning is for one reason. And that reason is because God wants to give boundless pleasure to us. And that's why he created the Torah and mitzvos, and that's why he gave the Torah, and that's what's going on here, and we have to understand how that is, because the way we do it doesn't really seem like that. It seems very much like, I don't know, something, I guess we're trying to be nice, but it doesn't seem like that's what's happening, so that's why we're learning the secrets of the Torah, okay? And by that, the lowly rise with true recognition and become a chariot for him, and to cleave unto him until they reach their final completion. Neither has the eye seen a God before besides thee, and because of the greatness of the glory of that perfection, the Torah and the prophecy too refrain from uttering even a single word of exaggeration here. As our sages said, all the prophets made their prophecies only for the day of the Messiah, but for the next world neither has the eye seen or God beside thee. Sorry, the words are hard for me to read because it's not like modern English, so it's hard for me to read, but here we go. Okay. This perfection is expressed in the words of the Torah and the prophecy, and in the words of our sages, in the simple words, devekus, adhesion. Okay? So he said that there's something called adhesion, devekut, which we say all the time, and we want to have adhesion with the Creator, and that is, when that happens, then we will see that all the pleasure that God wanted to give to the world is going to be expressed fully, and we'll see, oh, that's why God created the world. We're going to see all of the purpose of creation when we achieve this state of consciousness that's called adhesion, connection with the Creator. And so I'm just going to stop and just digress here for a second because we've said it many times, but I'll give you a little bit of explanation of what the Vekus means. Is that God is a giver. God has everything, so he only has the ability to give. Not the ability is the wrong word. He only has the desire to give because he already has everything. So God is giving, and so the problem with creation is that we are taking everything, and so we're takers, we're selfish. So we want everything for ourselves, and God wants to give everything to us. And so that causes a great separation between us and God. And so the Torah and mitzvos, the method that we are doing and that we will do in a much more profound way when Mashiach comes, is this work of becoming similar to God. And so when we become similar to God, then all of the worlds will become into balance, and in that balance we will experience all the pleasure and that God had desired for us. Okay? It's a lot, and we'll be saying it over and over again, and we'll keep saying it, and so let's just keep going. Okay, it turns out that the purpose of the whole of creation is that the lowly creatures will be able, by keeping Torah and mitzvos, to rise ever upwards, ever developing, until they are rewarded with dvekus with the Creator. Okay, so that's what the Torah and mitzvos is for. Okay, so we didn't answer the first question: is how can we be nice to everybody, nicer than we are to ourselves? It seems like it's impossible, and we have many, many questions. But we're starting to answer that. We will. We have an answer. The answer is, what is the purpose of doing Torah and mitzvos? The answer is that to achieve dveikut, adhesion with the Creator, which means similarity of form, meaning that we become like the Creator in that the God desires to give to everybody else, and we are going to, when we evolve our consciousness, we're going to reach a state where all we want to do is make everybody else happy, and that's what the Torah is for. Okay, let's keep going. But here comes the Kabbalists and ask, why were we not created in this high stature of adhesion, the Veikut, to begin with? What reason did He, God, have to burden us with the labor of creation and the Torah and mitzvos? And they replied, he who eats that which is not his is afraid to look at his face. This means that one who eats and enjoys the labor of his own, one's friend, is afraid to look at his face, because by doing so, he becomes increasingly humiliated until he loses his human form. And because that which extends from his wholeness cannot be deficient, he gave us room to earn our exaltedness by ourselves through the work of Torah and mitzvahs. Okay, amazing. He just answered a question, okay? You just told me that the real reason for the Torah is that it's going to be to teach us to be nicer to everybody than we are to ourselves, to be givers. And we said, that seems like it's impossible. And he said, okay, but keep going, keep explaining it to me. And so then we said, then the Kabbalah said, Rabbi Yehuda ASHLAG said, before I answer the question, I have to tell you why is it that the Torah was given to the Jews and not to everybody else? And I don't want you probably think this because the Jews are special and the Jews are like, a special people and we are better than everybody else. And he goes, that's not, only an insane person would think that. And he hasn't answered that question yet. But that's a question that he asked. And now he just answered a question, which he said, what is the Torah for? The Torah is for achieving dveikut, adhesion, similarity of form with the Creator. And so he asked the question and he immediately answered. He goes, wait a minute. If God wanted us to be just like Him, why didn't He just make us like that to begin with? So God likes to give, so make people who like to give. Okay? So he said the problem with that would be it's called bread of shame in Kabbalah. It would mean that if God made us like that and we got all the pleasure right away and we got everything without working for it and we were just fantastic, great, because God made us that way, then we would feel humiliated, we feel ashamed. So the example we give over and over again is if you have a very rich friend and he keeps inviting you over to his house and he lets you borrow his cars and he lets you swim in a swimming pool and there's always a chef over there and he's always cooking for you, after a while you start to become embarrassed. And then you realize, wait a minute, I don't have anything. He has all the food, he has beautiful cars, he has a beautiful house, he has beautiful clothes, he has everything. I have nothing to give him. Why would I'm not going to be friends with him anymore because every time I go over there, I have to be like a beggar. I'm getting and he's giving me. It's not a fun relationship, right? Nobody likes that. So Rabbi Yehuda ASHLAG just explained the reason why we have 6,000 years of development, the reason why we are doing Torah and mitzvos, and we're trying to build ourselves from being selfish in our egos, in Mitzrayim, and slowly but surely trying to transcend ourselves and become givers, is because God wants us to earn that, because that itself is a beautiful gift, that we can be like Hashem and that we worked for it, and so that everything good that happens in the future and when Mashiach comes, we're going to have worked for it and we'll feel very good about ourselves and we'll enjoy the relationship with God because we will feel like we are I'm not sure where it says it, like princes sitting at the king's table. So that after we do Torah mitzvahs and we do all this very hard work, we are going to feel a sense of self-satisfaction, and we're going to feel that we are great and that we worked for it, and that itself is a gift. And so Kabbalah is a very natural wisdom. So you see it mirrors everything that's happening in our world. So you see this exact evolution happens to every single person. They're born, they're completely reliant on their parents. They stay in the home for 16 years and they get everything from their parents, and slowly but surely what happens is a kid starts to want to work and make his own money, and then he wants to leave the house and buy his own house, buy his own car, get his own wife or husband, and move out and become a boss himself and become a parent. Why do we have all those desires? And so the Kabbalists are telling us that's because these are the very steps of creation that we're feeling. Every person feels all of these things. Pregnancy, the entire spheros are set up like a relationship between a man and a woman. That's why another reason why people are reluctant to teach Kabbalah and to learn Kabbalah, because it has a lot of sexual imagery, because we're talking about this relationship. And so we talk about pregnancy, and then we talk about labor pains, and then we talk about giving birth, and then we talk about being a youth, and then we talk about being a bar mitzvah, and then we talk about becoming married. All of these are stages in the evolution of consciousness. And so everything is it's called a fractal. Everything is happening on every single level of consciousness, outward in circles, going out and out and out. It's the same thing. The same story is the DNA, the instructions are in every single thing. The same thing happens to a plant, the same thing happens to a cat, the same thing happens to a person, the same thing happens to a family, the same thing happens to a neighborhood, the same thing happens to a country. It's called fractal patterns. This is the way consciousness, flows out. And so we shouldn't be surprised by this, that this is the story of everything. This is how everything works. Okay? Keep going. Making sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. These words are most profound, and I have already explained them in my book, Panim Me'irot U Masbirot, To the Tree of Life, Branch 1, and in the book, The Study of the 10 Spheros, Inner Reflections, Part 1. These are all things that we should learn together. These are all the books of the Baal Shalom. Here, where he explains the work of the Ari, and he explains all the Kabbalah. Okay. Here I will explain them briefly to make them understandable for all, okay? So he's going to tell you all of these secrets of Kabbalah very quickly here in one article, okay? This matter is like a rich man who took a man from the market and fed him and gave him gold and silver and all desirables every day. And each day he showered him with more and more gifts than the day before. Finally, the rich man asked him, "Do tell me, have all your wishes been fulfilled?" And the man replied, the man that he just took a guy from the street and started giving him presents, and he said, "No, not at all. Not all of my wishes have been fulfilled. For how good and how pleasant it would be if all those possessions and precious things came to me through my own work as they have come to you, and I would not be receiving the charity of your hand." Then the rich man told him, "In that case, has never been born a person who can fulfill your wishes." So here, he gave a mashal, an allegory, and he's telling you that in the regular world, if you want to get to the place where you feel that you've earned everything and you deserve everything that you've gotten and that you're standing on your own 2 feet, it's never going to happen. You see people work, they work very hard, right? What happens? A person makes $1 million, then they want to make $5 million. They make $5 million, they want to make $10 million. What happens? They get to 40, 50 years old, and they have all of this gorgeous stuff, and they're older now, and they can't enjoy it, and then they work for nothing their whole life. That's what he's telling you, okay? I remember when I was a kid, I had a friend, and both his parents were doctors, and his parents used to go away, and we used to all come over, all the guys used to come over to the house, and he had like all these accounts for all the restaurants in the neighborhood, and we would just have to say, "It's Dr. Greenberg." Put it on Dr. Greenberg's account, and we would get the alcohol. We were like 16. We would get we call the wine store. We call the pastrami, whatever, the meat store, and we'd get these huge deliveries, and we'd stay in this house because the parents were away. Okay, and so then when the parents would come home, I remember thinking, we're all like 16, so we're all like working out all day. We have 6 packs, and we're all good looking. And then these 2 doctors would come back after the vacation, 45 years old, and they look so fat and old. And I say, what a waste on the swimming pool and the beautiful stuff on these two old people. And like, what they're working all day, 80 hours a week at doctors, and we're all living. I mean, he had a Porsche, he had Ferrari. We used to go drive the cars around. Anyway, that's the way. So he's telling you, if you want to try to work and get to your place where you feel like you've got everything and you've made everything yourself and you deserve everything and you want to feel that pleasure, he goes, good luck. So he's telling you, it's not going to happen, okay? It is a natural thing, since on the one hand, he experiences greater and greater pleasure the more he showers presence upon him, but on the other hand, it is hard for him to tolerate the shame for the excessive goodness that the rich bestows upon him. This is because there is a natural law that the receiver feels shame and impatience upon receiving gifts from the giver out of compassion and pity. So he's telling you that God is the ultimate giver, and everything that you get from God in life is never going to feel as good as you want it to feel. You're going to get something and you're going to, I worked in Hollywood, so I was a working director, so I was in some movies and so on. I was like, it's like you're chasing it and you can't grab it. That's what it feels like. They describe it as like, you go to the beach and you pick up a handful of sand. How old are you? 32. 32? Okay, soon you're going to start to feel these things. So I hope you don't feel it, but still, you feel like you're chasing, and you never get what you want, and so there's something missing. So this is exactly what Torah is for, saying there's a missing ingredient in this thing, and when we figure it out and we do the Torah and mitzvahs the right way, we're going to get that one thing that is going to make everything else work. And this is what he's explaining. Okay, the secrets of the Torah. Okay. From here extends a second law, that never will anyone be able to satisfy the needs of his friend to the fullest, because ultimately he will not be able to give him the nature and the form of self-possession, as only with it is the desired perfection attained. So he said, there's something missing in life, and that's when, if you want to try to fix this problem, you have to do something special, and that's what Torah mitzvahs is for. Okay. But this relates only to the creatures, whereas regarding the Creator, it is completely impossible and unacceptable. And this is the reason he has prepared for us the toil and the labor of Torah and mitzvos, to produce our exaltedness by ourselves, because then the delight and pleasure that comes to us from him, meaning everything that is included in adhesion with him, will all be our own possession that has come to us through our own efforts. Then we will feel ourselves as the owners, without which there cannot be a sensation of wholeness. Okay? So we're saying there's something missing. We have all the ingredients to try to do something in this world, but there's one ingredient that is missing, and without that ingredient, we're never going to get, and we all know that, we all feel that. And so that's exactly the Baal Shem is telling us, that surprise, surprise, you were right, you can't win. You can't find completion in this world without Torah and mitzvos, okay? Indeed, we need to examine the heart and the source of this natural law, and who it was that fathered the flaw of shame and impatience that we feel upon receiving charity from others. It is understood from a law that is known to scientists that each branch bears the same natural nature as its root, and that the branch also desires, seeks, and craves, and benefits from all the conducts of the root. Conversely, all the conducts that are not in the root, its branch removes itself from them, cannot tolerate them, and is harmed by them. This law exists between each root and its branch and cannot be breached. Okay, it's very complicated language, but let me try to just say it in plain old English. He said something very amazing. The Baal Shem just said something amazing. When a person awakens to this truth, when a person says, wait a minute, this world makes no sense. There's no way to be happy in this world. I keep chasing and chasing and chasing everything, and I end up with nothing. When a person realizes that, then they ask a very, very important question. This is the first time that a person needs God. That's what he's telling you, that everybody else is doing everything all day. If a person is religious and they're so happy with themselves, and they're happy that they're going to marry a beautiful girl, and they're happy that they're going to become a big Talmud Chacham, and they're happy that they're going to be popular, and they're happy that they're going to be, right, all these things. They're happy that they're going to get major rewards in heaven when they die. That person has no need for God. That person doesn't really experience God. Here, he's saying, wait a minute. Somebody made the world like this, and there's something missing, and I have to get this one missing thing, that is the way that a person discovers God. That's the way the person starts. When that person has that feeling, that person says, wait a minute, why do I feel like I can't get things for free? Because God doesn't want to get things for free. God doesn't need to get things for free. God doesn't get anything from anybody. So the feeling that we have that is uncomfortable was given to us by God so that we can find him. So he said, God made the world not... We just heard that God wants to give us a bunch of pleasure, and that's why he made Torah and mitzvahs, and that's what we're up to. But he just told us another secret. What's the other secret? Is that when you realize that this world is missing something, and this world is broken, and you start to say why, and that will be your first moment that you will be able to see, to feel that there's a God. Because you'll say, somebody created the world, and they made me feel embarrassed that I'm getting everything for free and that I don't like it. So why would I feel that way? So he just said, because God feels that way. God has everything, and he doesn't need to take charity from anybody. So he's the root, and he's the root, and we're the branch. So since God made us, we are like him, and so since we're like him, we don't like to get things for free. We don't like the feeling of getting things without doing anything about it, without doing anything for it. And so when we have this awakening, this is one of the first awakenings in Kabbalah, that is when we start to say, hey, I feel bad, I don't like this, I don't feel complete, because God would not feel complete if he was in this situation, and God made it like that, he must want me to find him. Okay, this stuff takes a long time to get into your head, but when you start to feel it and start to understand what's being said here, it becomes very magical, okay? Now here opens before us a door of consciousness to understand the source of all the pleasures and pains in our world. Since the Creator is the root of his creations, we feel all that exists in him and extends to us directly from him as pleasant and delightful, because our nature is close to our root, and everything that is not in him does not extend to us directly from him, but contradicts creation itself, will be against our natures and difficult for us to tolerate. Thus, we love to rest and hate to move so much that we do not make a single movement if not for the attainment of rest. That is because our root is immobile, but at rest, and no motion exists in him whatsoever. Therefore, it is against our nature and loathsome to us. He's just giving an example here that we all want to be on vacation. So he said, well, why do we want to be on vacation? If God, you just told me that God gave us this beautiful gift of having to work for everything. He said, yeah, that's true, but the opposite is also true. The truth is that we feel like we don't want to be working all the time. We want to get what we worked for. So he says, yes, that's also in you. And why is that in you? It's because God has everything. So God has a quality of being at rest. So since God is unchanging, we feel that God is changing, right? But really we're changing, right? Because a mirror world. And so what he's telling us here is that, yeah, we have a feeling that we want to work for what we get, but at the same time, we also have a feeling that we want to just be there already, right? And so we have these two paradoxical qualities. Should we stop here? Okay, let me just read this last sentence, and then we'll stop. By the same token, we love wisdom, strength, and wealth, because all those exist in him who is our root, and hence we hate their opposites, such as foolishness, weakness, and poverty, since they do not exist in our root at all. This makes us feel hateful and loathsome and pains us immeasurably. Okay, end the paragraph.